Well, ladies and gentlemen, what can I say about today's video apart from the fact, again, it really does highlight the issues that women's sports is going through and will continue to go through, and the insanity we all live in. Now, before I carry on, I got to give a massive thank you to Rebel News. All credit goes to them for this story, for this video. The time, effort and research they put into their content is absolutely insane. I highly recommend you go check them out. But they have covered a story in Canada centered around a women's rugby team. The Fergus Highlanders have caused a lot of controversy after a male, Ash Davis, has been allowed to compete against women because obviously they identify as a woman and it must be reaffirmed, and they have injured 3 other women. A classic case of the safety concern we all have, the safety concern that isn't taken into consideration because progression. But we're going to read this article that has been created by Rebel News that gives a lot of context surrounding the situation, and then we'll get into the video of somebody from Rebel News actually going to a game and interviewing people in attendance, all the players. And yeah, it's very interesting to say the least. Trans rugby player confronted as unhinged teammates scream, police arrive. One of 3 women injured by Ash Davis came out last month and said, "I've never been hit like that before, even at the competitive women's level. There was so much more brute force. There are women who are bigger than him, but no girl hits like that. This is a strong human." Meet Ash Davis, or is it Ashley these days? Mr. Davis plays for the Fergus Highlanders women's team. He tackles hard. Just ask those 3 women who suited up for the Stony Creek Camels last month who had to be removed from the game thanks to Ash's debilitating tackles. Ash is clearly a male. In fact, he doesn't even try to look female. He has an Adam's apple, male pattern baldness is setting in, and it's impossible to ignore those leg muscles. But get this, Ash being on the field goes against the sport's governing body, World Rugby. World Rugby notes what should be obvious in this statement: transgender women may not currently play women's rugby. Why? Because of the size, force and power producing advantages conferred by testosterone during puberty and adolescence, and the resultant player welfare risks this creates. Yet Joe Warmington last month noted that the rugby authorities in Canada are beholden to wokeness. Rugby Canada said this is a federal inclusion issue, and not only is this transgender player welcomed in the league, but the law protects that person from discrimination. Meanwhile, Rugby Ontario responded by issuing a gag order to players: if you are contacted by anyone in the community or the media, please do not engage by offering any opinion or comment on the situation. And I wonder why that is. Right? But a lot of interesting things going on there, right? We obviously have this male, Ash Davis, who is trying to be a female without actually trying to look like a female. But then again, you don't have to, right? You can literally just sit there and say, hey guys, as a male, I'm now a woman, and society just has to nod their heads and go along with it. Interestingly, them playing against women in rugby goes against the World Rugby rules. So to me, it seems like Rugby Canada have decided to go against that, override their rules because of inclusion, and they are protected by law from discrimination. I don't. But hey, look, it obviously doesn't matter what happens in this case, in this situation, and I say that because, again, 3 women have been injured, yet this player is still allowed to compete. So what they're saying to me and everybody else is, you know, we're putting this person's feelings and individual truth on a pedestal above women's safety. How many more women have to get injured if 3 wasn't enough for these people to sit down and really do some self-reflection and think to themselves, you know, maybe having men competing in women's sports isn't the best thing, putting the physical advantage on show, injuring them. You know, maybe it's not the greatest thing for women's safety, but will they ever do that? Probably not, because progression must be pushed regardless of the consequences. As long as the minorities' wants and needs are being met, it doesn't matter what happens. We all know this. But I'm not going to talk for too long because we obviously have this big video to react to from Rebel News where somebody goes and interviews people at attendance in a game. You know, they interview the players and some of the people watching, and as you can imagine, they aren't too happy. He's there, there's pushing, shoving, shouting, screaming. What more could you expect? But once again, all thanks, all credit goes to Rebel News for this video. I'll leave a link in the description if anybody wants to check out the whole thing. It's around 21 minutes long. The intro of that video, by the way, is absolutely golden. But nonetheless, sit back, relax, and enjoy the insanity sweeping across Canada and women's rugby.
Hey, Mr. Davis, Ash, why are you doing this? I'm David Menzies, Rebel News.
Hi. No, you're not really a part of this. We're having a team chat now.
Okay, so I'm just trying to ask some questions,
sure,
ma'am.
but this is not the appropriate time for that.
Why are you allowing a biological male to compete against female players?
I'm not going to have a conversation with you.
Well, I'll talk to Ash then. Ash, do you take joy in injuring female rugby players? Are you lacking the skills to play with male players where you should be? You're a biological male, aren't you?
I got you. Right here. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ash, are you a misogynist?
Coming with me? Please leave me alone.
Hey, watch it. You'll be charged with assault.
Child. Would you mind leaving?
Mr. Ash, the governing body for rugby, World Rugby, says men should not compete.
Trans lives matter.
Wow, really?
All lives matter.
All lives matter. All lives matter. Human rights matter.
You don't have a problem.
You can leave now.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Now, thank you.
This is a human rights issue.
Oh, okay then.
We live in Canada. All rights, human rights for everybody. Trans matter.
What about the?
Trans rights matter.
That you are traumatizing my family
I'm traumatizing them. Why? What happened?
because my kids get to see people like you crying because of things.
I'm surprised.
need you in our
As a mother, why would you expose your kids to a
Because
massage?
that is my partner. That is my wife that you are being.
So he's a lesbian?
So I'm gonna just ask you guys,
Why?
please. Yeah.
What? Do you think it's okay for him to injure biological women?
So I'm not gonna answer any of your questions. And I'm
Then have a nice day.
I need
Human rights. Human rights.
What about the human rights of biological women being injured by this man?
Human rights.
What about the biological rights of the?
Charter of Rights and Charter of Rights and Humans matter. Human rights matter.
Well, why do we
Human
have?
rights, no.
Why do we have separate
Human
categories
rights
for male
matter.
and female sports?
Human rights matter.
Ash, do you enjoy? Do you enjoy?
Human rights matter.
That's all you can yell.
Human rights matter.
Tell that to the injured woman.
Matter. Their rights matter.
No, I think you.
Their rights matter.
To call the police.
Oh,
Their
okay,
rights
fine. Call the
matter.
police.
I will.
Okay, what's the
I think
charge?
it's time for you to
Charge. Oh, yeah. Oh, don't cry. There's
Human chain.
Hey, excuse me.
Human chain.
Wow,
I'm sorry,
isn't this
sir.
amazing?
Human chain.
I've never had such female attention. It's unbelievable.
Human rights matter.
The game is over. You lost.
Human rights matter.
Why did you lose the
Human
game?
rights
Not enough
matter.
men.
Human rights, sir.
Human rights.
We're showing you respect.
How you doing there?
Let's find his car.
Feel about a biological male playing in rugby, man?
Thank you.
I don't really give a.
Everybody.
Okay.
Don't say.
Why don't you go home?
You can go home, sir.
Human rights for everybody. Human rights for everybody.
Jill, can we just go into the change room?
See, she's only chanting dogma, folks. She doesn't want to have a
Human
conversation
rights for everybody.
because she doesn't have an answer. With every sport, with the exception of equestrian and auto racing.
I demand human rights for everybody.
Can
Human rights for everybody.
I play ringette with 5-year-old girls?
Human rights for everybody.
What was that? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Human rights for everybody.
Did you get your PhD?
Pardon me?
You're defining a biological female. Where did you get your PhD?
So I'm defining but ma'am, in the history of sports, all sports, with the exception of equestrian
I'm not old enough for that
or
question.
auto
I'm
race.
there for history. I'm only 19 years old. I cannot say what happened 20 years ago because I wasn't.
No, but in the here and now, you see male tennis, female tennis,
I don't
right?
see any tennis. I don't watch tennis.
Oh, okay then. So it doesn't exist then.
To me, you can't ask me a question about it because I have no idea. Just the same as you can't talk about what a female is if you're not a doctor.
I can't. What is a female then? Do you have a definition?
No, I'm not a doctor.
Well, Sergeant, I want to apologize that this use of police resources is being used to, I don't know, censor the free press in Canada. I'm simply asking questions.
No, you're more than welcome to ask questions.
Okay,
That's
okay.
fine.
For now.
We just want to make sure there's no breach of the peace. That's why.
Well, I think it's safe to say I'm never going to Canada. Again, a lot of stuff happened in that video, right? And one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, apart from the police being called because people were so offensive over a man asking questions as to why there's another man competing in women's sports, but it's the reluctance to have a public debate about this issue. They just scream and shout in his face. They shut him down. They don't want to hear anybody's opinion. It's human rights, human rights. They shout in his face. Human rights, really? Well, what about the rights of the women that were injured? What about their rights? Clearly, you don't care about those. The way those people acted to me, and not only the players, but the people in attendance, is nothing short of embarrassing. It's almost like an automated response from these people. They're like robots, right? As soon as you say something that's controversial to them, an opinion they don't like, they just start screaming and shouting. Human rights, trans rights, and there's nothing after that. Really is there. And you know, we speak about the women quite a bit who are okay with these men competing against them sometimes or being in the same team. But what gets me, and I've just realized this, okay, the fathers that are okay with their daughters competing against men. And that video very clearly shows that the men in attendance are all okay with this. You know, daughters competing against men who could seriously injure them. Now, I understand rugby is a physical sport and they could get injured regardless. But if you have a man competing against them, as the 3 women who did get injured clearly demonstrate, you're more likely to suffer a serious injury. Yet, apparently, according to these fathers, it is all okay. That to me just shows how weak and feminine men have become, because to me, a father should want to protect the women and the daughters who are playing. Yet they're all okay with their daughter potentially being subjected to a serious injury because of somebody's feelings and individual truth. That's so bizarre to me. If I saw my daughter playing a sport and there was a man, a boy competing, I'd be really concerned about the risk my daughter is in, the safety concern. But to them, you know, that doesn't compute within their minds, because they see that and they think, oh, this is great, this is amazing. Inclusivity, guys. Yeah, unless it's their daughter that gets injured, I'd wonder how they feel. Nonetheless, that is the end of the video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have enjoyed today. If you could, make sure to leave a like rating. If you're new, hit that big red subscribe button and turn on bell notifications so you never miss a video. Leave your comments down below about this situation. I'm very interested to see what you guys thought about that video. It's a very telling state of society, isn't it? But until tomorrow, it has been your boy, JD. Have a great day, stay safe, and I'm out. Peace.